Pop, 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 pop.
Welcome to the Small Business Show. My name is Swire from Garuda Promo. Hope you like the intro there. Something new that we put it in there. Joining me today is Mike Castiglione from Sandler Training and Nick Pyzow from CBIZ. Good morning, guys.
Morning.
Morning, Swire.
So today, we are, just yesterday, we heard there's some states are going to roll back their reopening effort. So I do wanted to throw this question into you guys for reopening opportunities and strategies that you guys see. I know you guys are both talk to a lot of clients and deal with a lot of networking. From what you can see, what are the some of the biggest challenges that from business owners that you talk to about reopening?
Nick, you can start.
Thanks. Good morning, everybody. The biggest thing we're seeing, luckily and fortunately, is safety. Safety and health. If the employees feel safe enough to continue their work or progress their work in the office environment or work environment where it happens to be. So that seems to be the major concern. Many people are getting by or doing well remotely, but there's also the cultural aspect of an office or workplace that can't be replaced by a computer. And so as a result, most businesses that we've talked to, their biggest concern is how do I safely bring everyone back in? And in that environment, they're just as or more productive as they were remote. And we can begin to build a workplace culture. Wouldn't say a new normal, it's just an alternate. And over time, see if that can work. So a lot of the safety measures, and everyone can obviously research what that looks like, but that's what we've seen both internally at CBIZ MHM as well as to our clients.
How about you, Mike?
Yeah, I think I'll echo everything that Nick just said, and then also the mental health. So not everyone's comfortable being back in a social environment. So being able to utilize these virtual components, if you can. There's a lot of professionals who do need to go back and be in person and to be as safe as possible, but also trying to think about from a psychological perspective. We've just been in isolation for 3 months, and a lot of people are now slowly going back to work, but to do it in a hybrid way. I can't tell you how many people are like, I'm working 2 days from home from here on out. I like being around my children. I like this. So, we talk about building efficiencies. We are social, and there are certain things we do need to be together for, but let's look for ways of efficiency. And if you can be productive at home, then how can you incorporate that in on a regular basis so that we're not just going right back to normal? And then the second thing is caution. As Nick said, is make sure that you're careful. I think the biggest question right now are elevators. How do you get into your skyrise or multi-level unit safely? Once we get into our offices, it's pretty, social distance, sanitizer, we are understanding that. But the question that people are still wondering right now is, the commute time at the elevator. We're in LA, so obviously the commute time is going down in our cars, but at the elevator, it can be up to an hour to get into a building. So that's the biggest unknown that I've seen.
Yeah, I agree, with the safety concern, but I actually talked to a salon owner and yesterday about her reopening. Actually, besides the safety measure, and her concern is cost, because right now with the mandate, they have to provide a lot of masks, and then some of the protective gear they have to change mandatory every single client. So their cost is actually increased by serving the client. She can overbook. She have to serve one customer at a time. So we're kind of, reflecting her bottom line. And that brings me to the next question. We want to talk about value. I know I've talked to you, Mike, and also talked to you, Nick. So how do we balance? So obviously, we're in business, we want to make a profit, but then, a lot of people that, we come in contact with are interested very much in cost savings. So how would you adjust that value and profit, balance?
Well, I think first and foremost, you have to understand what are your new services. As we go back to, call it the new normal, whatever we want to call it, there's a lot of people who have adopted virtual revenue streams. Are you still going to use those? And go back and look at your costs. What are your expenses? And this has been a great time to reflect and really think about what are some of those costs that are impacting your overhead. Are they essential anymore? And I understand that, and also next week we have labor minimum wage going up.
Mm-hmm.
So these are all things that are coming in. Those are realities, and it's not the hem and haw around. Safety is important. Human capital is important. Look at your other costs. What can you save? What can you do different? And then number two is, when you're talking about value, is does your client understand that? So are you asking the great questions? Are you getting them to understand what you're doing? And it's not through great marketing. It's not just through, sending out the message. It's talking and listening. Have you had an informal survey with your best clients, asking them why they value you? Have you asked those good questions? What have you done over the last 2 years? Why do they keep coming back? And do you know why? And then build off of that and make sure that that's at your core value, your value proposition of your company, and then build off of it.
What do you think, Nick?
I agree. It's budgeting, forecasting, using last year's numbers or historicals, all out the window. All out the window. You can't base anything on history anymore. And so as a result, to Michael's point, you take a look at your business and you say, what are my new standards, my new costs, my new overhead, my new pricing, and see if it reflects, because there may be a place where, let's say your cost is $10, that's based on everything before. Well, now you refigure it, and it could be that some costs have actually reduced or gone away, replaced by others. And so when you take a look at that in a very strategic way, you may be able to either save money, or as a result, you might have to take a hit, but you hope that you have more volume, and over time you can build that cost back up. It's talking about value. Everyone is going through the same thing. Everyone is going through the same thing. So they're all looking at their revenue. How can I get it back to where it was or increase it? And they're all looking at costs, going, I have all these new burdens, but maybe some have gone away. So it is a laborious task. It is pretty large, regardless of how large your business is. It's still important. It still needs to be done. But it's that hard look. And then finally, to your point, what value are you offering to people in society and the consumer base now that things are loosening up, given that we're still very much in a pandemic right now with numbers going up as of this date? What does that look like? And so you can benchmark yourself against others in that similar situation. You can go it alone. There's no right or wrong to that. It really comes back down to what value you see in the marketplace and how does that stack up and benchmark against other people providing that product or service. And is it a true, as they say, apples to apples comparison?
Nick, let me add on to what you're saying is, if you haven't read the book Profit First by, his last name's a tough one, so I have to read it. It's Mike Michalowicz. He even jokes about how hard it is to pronounce his name about 8 times. Mike Michalowicz, Profit First. You need to read it. We tend to think grow our revenue, grow our revenue, grow our revenue, but then expenses then grow. So the traditional is revenue minus expenses. Then that's what we take home. But he gives a whole new mindset. Is revenue minus your profit is your expenses. So Swire, to your point of as expenses change, what do you have to get rid of?
Mm-hmm.
You have to get rid of some old expenses. And obviously safety is going to come first. Human capital is going to come first. But then what else can you get rid of in an old way? Read the book. It's phenomenal. It'll give you a new mindset, especially if you're a small business owner, an entrepreneur. It's changed my business model tremendously. And it's awesome. Read it.
Nick, we actually have Christine, one of our friends. He asked you a question, and he likes the answer that you have. And there are new costs. Obviously, we have to add PPE. We have to adjust all the safety measure or the way that we normally work. Now we have to implement a lot of extra things before we went. But then I also would say we're working from home. All of us are in the comfort of our home right now, home office. So you are saving your commute. You're saving gas. Some offices, they might not need a big office anymore. So I think it's a balance, and it is interesting to how a pandemic like this, we can shovel and we think of the strategy for a business.
There's two pieces to that. One, speaking about profit, it also depends on your window of expectation. It might not be an immediate profit. It might be over a certain amount of time. If Michael and I are in business together and we're trying to make money, we're doing our business, and I think it's going to be in a year, and Michael thinks it's going to be in 2 years, at the 6-month point, we have very different views on how we think it's going. Okay, so you also want to look at that piece as well. Is it immediate profit? Is it over a 2-year, 4-year, 6-month? You pick it, it matters to you. That's a big piece of the model too, because you're right, Michael. It might be, I actually have a smaller profit. However, in this amount of time, I've actually made more compared to. And around getting back to workspace and do I need this much and whatnot, you may have fewer people, but they also need to be 6 feet apart. So your square footage may be exactly the same, but it's just been reconfigured. And so there was a little knee jerk at first of, I don't need this much room. And then when folks went, I don't need this much room if I'm going to go back to everybody sitting as close as they do. If they back up again with the blank sheet of paper with a new cost structure, what does that look like? It might be a wash. It might actually work to everyone's advantage.
Okay. And the next one, I had, actually, Nick, you suggested it, is when to go low and when to go no. Like, tell us the concept, please.
Well, everyone values their time and their money. And so if you're a buyer, you value your time and money. And if you're a seller, same thing. And as a person representing a product or a service, you have to respect what you have and its value in the marketplace. And it's fun to win. It's fun to close a deal. You have pressure from managers saying, make your quota or whatever that word is, and everything's higher than zero. But at some point, you have a value that needs to be respected. And whether it's the time, whether it's the quality, or whether it's the service, the product, that needs to be respected. So the idea behind that is have some perimeter around what you can do with pricing, but also have some perimeter around what you do with your service, with your quality, with what you add in or take out. And sometimes you're dealing with some buyers that really just want to get the lowest price possible. Well, they should. They should. That's their fiduciary duty, because everyone's going to ask them that at the board meeting. Did you ask them about the price? Did you get the best price possible? And they have to defend it. They have a number. And so exploring what that is and why on both sides can really help mitigate any of that adversary relationship. That said, some folks will come at you with a number. Can you do it? And at some point, you have to have the confidence to go, no, I can't. The successful salesperson says, no, I can't, however. And that key word spins it and keeps the conversation alive. Then after you've explored everything and it just looks like they can't or won't afford it, or you can't or won't go lower, you have to shake hands as folks on earth and say, looks like it's not working out. Mm-hmm. That's tough, but that's the way it should be done. Michael, if you have a contrary point of view, I'd like to hear it, but I've seen that work the best. And I want a whole story around that.
Your mechanic story before I jump in.
Oh, okay. So when I was younger, we used to wrench our own cars. And this is when you could actually buy auto parts and things like that. So if you had a starter or a carburetor or whatever, they had a core charge, meaning you turn in your old one and they give you a little bit for that. And then you get the new one or the refurbished one. Well, I was turning in a starter. It was $35, $10 core charge. So it's $25. And I go, oh, can you do it for 20? And the guy turns to the back wall and he points to a sign and it says, price, quality, service, pick any two. And I went, oh, and he said, Nick, if you want me to reduce the price, then I'm either going to have to give you worse service or give you lower quality. If you want a higher quality, well, then I'm either going to have to charge you more or, and he showed me that triangle. And it's really helped me out in my professional career of that idea, or time, scope, money. Pick any two. So
That's great, and it piggybacks right into what it's first and foremost planned. Too many entrepreneurs, too many business owners go into meetings without what their service costs, what their product costs. They don't know their wiggle room. So going back to our first conversations, it costs money to do things. And you have an arbitrary number on a piece of paper. Have you done your backwards planning? Have you gone in and said, this is what my product or service costs? Because if you haven't, don't walk into that meeting. You're doing them a disservice. And more importantly, you're doing yourself when you come to an agreement and the margin isn't going to be there. So plan exactly what you want. And then number 2, the mindset. Go for the no. Not every buyer is qualified. So it's okay to say no. Sometimes during these times, you'll do anything to get business. But if you look at the long-term costs, is kind of what you see as the theme of this conversation, you might actually be buying business. So your margin might actually be a little bit lower, almost zero, or even worse, negative. You don't want that. So we talk about a philosophy called a monkey paw. A monkey paw is, the idea is when a ship comes into port, you have those big, huge anchors that pull it in. You can't throw that to the side, you'd kill someone. So you got a rope with a little knot on it. And we call that a monkey fist. So you throw the rope to the side, the seaman pulls it in, puts the chain on, and then you pull the ship in safely. So same thing in business. It's something that it's for the value, the price is fair, but it's less product and service. So exact story this week is I had a client with 60 sales professionals. They weren't comfortable doing the full program. So I wasn't going to do it for a reduced price. We reduced the number of people, so the cost went down. We reduced the amount of engagements, so the cost went down. But it's all standardized. It actually goes up a little bit because I'm doing more for less, so it's actually a higher margin. So it helps in my favor versus in their favor. So you have to really plan first and foremost, what are your products and service worth that you can make a comfortable margin, because you should not be buying work. Mm-hmm. That's my philosophy is. And then if they're not comfortable with a monkey paw, because again, we're based on product or we're based on service. People like working with us. So can you do a reduced solution for a reduced cost, not lower your price with the full solution? That's key.
Hey, Nick, I actually learned, also I was a young salesman many, many years ago, and I was frustrated because people always want to focus on price. And actually my manager then, he showed me kind of like what you have, he called it the golden triangle.
Golden triangle.
So you have price, you have turnaround, and you have quality, and you can only pick 2. So it goes well, I think, in any industry that we work with. For example, now I'm in promotional product. If you want good pricing, but you also want good quality, you might have to wait a little. We might do it overseas, you have to wait a little. But then if you want it fast and you want it good, then you are prepared to pay up. So I think it's true on anything that we buy, even when you buy groceries, when you buy a house or,
sure.
Accounting service. Then, if they want you to do this right now, it's possible, but we're going to have more people on it, billing you more hours. So I think, I wish we had the slide. I just, show the golden triangle before I start.
Yeah, when I demonstrate that, we call it time, scope, money, because we're a professional service. And my saying with that is well, if you need to spend less, then we either need to decrease the scope or give us more time, because isosceles can't lie. And anyone who was a math major goes, oh, but nonetheless, you're right. And most folks understand that, and in terms of, hey, I'm buying the work, or hey, give us this one really cheap and we promise to buy the next 2 at retail. Get that in writing, or get that committed, or give them that discount at the end of the 3rd one or whatever, and then that way it takes their temperature on, are they real about that or not? And if they're not, that's cool. Now knowledge is power. But Michael, to your point, it's okay to say no, just don't take a long time to do it.
Again, that's a psychological challenge for so many people.
Yeah.
I'd say my second favorite word is no. I would love to hear yes, but my second favorite word is no.
Yeah.
The key, but that's hard for people to get to. And they what I call hopium. So they take a little sip of this thing called hopium, And they think if they lower their margin enough or they persevere enough that they can get their prospect to say yes, but they're not interested. And you have to get to those no's, and you have to be comfortable. And very successful leaders in this world, they're comfortable saying no. So if you're someone who, is always saying yes, just try saying no once in a while in the right situation.
Yeah, a lot of people tell me no and to drag on, but they really have no interest. Tell me no, I'll move on, next time maybe we'll work together, but then drag on but they really want to say no. Just say no.
Keep that in mind. There's something I learned from Joel Block a long time ago. It's called psychological congruence. The $10,000 Porsche. Wait a minute. For $10,000, who died in it or whatever. And so keep in mind that there has to be a congruence to what you offer. If they say we're currently paying $500,000 for this service or whatever, can you guys take a look at it and maybe do better? And you scratch and the highest you can come up with, rack rates and everything, is 130. There's a psychological incongruence there. Like, wait, the same thing for almost 300 less or whatever it is. So keep in mind to be psychologically congruent. If you just drop your price, that might not really compare to what others are doing out there for similar or higher. And so that's not a game. That's a very real thing, is look at your value, stick to it, see where you can wiggle. To Michael's point, that's a great idea. What is your wiggle room? And don't make it a garage sale. Just be candid, put it out there. And if you go, looks like we can't do it, let them decide, yes, you're right, looks like we can't do it. Yeah. Versus waiting. And that way they at least leave the meeting going, well, they're fair, they're honest, they're good. I just couldn't afford them, wouldn't afford them, my board wouldn't afford them, whatever it was. But you got a good impression. And I'm a big believer, and it wasn't no, it's not yet.
Yeah.
And if you could do that, because to people who are doing products, especially, they're buying it from somebody. So clearly the market hasn't gone away. They're just not buying from you. Mm-hmm. So the need hasn't gone away. Something just didn't work. So it's a no. It's not a no. It's a not yet. So.
Okay. And I think on the last segment, I know that you guys been doing a lot of virtual networking, and I actually went to two speed networking for the past 2 days, put together by the LA Chamber. A question that I ask, people when we do speed networking is, what is a good referral for you? But then a lot of people couldn't answer it. They tell me, oh, we service everyone and everyone in small, medium business. Then I'm really confused. Like, you tell me all the small, medium businesses, there's I don't know how many millions of them really. So can you tell the viewer, the way that you like to approach it when people ask you, what is a good referral for you, Nick or Mike? Like, how would you answer them? How should they structure when people ask them that question, really want to try to help them?
Simple. Keep it simple, right? People don't want to read your entire brochure back to front when you meet them. So if someone, luckily for me, says, so Nick, who do you need to meet? I make it something they can remember, and it's simple. And so I will say CFOs, business owners, people who sit on boards. Why would you think of us? Complexity. If there's a lot of simplicity to the challenge, many qualified CPAs can handle that. If there's a complexity and they don't need a very large Big Four firm, we're a good choice for that. So listen for a business dynamic and a complexity. Bam. I don't need to get into stories or why I joined this organization or anything. And when I ask them and they have difficulty, I say, tell me about one of your clients. Just tell me about one of your clients. And I'll get a story, and it takes a little longer, but in case it helps them also formulate what they're looking for.
Yeah.
Michael?
How about you, Mike?
I'm a mirror image. It's 3 titles. So I like to, whether it's a CEO, business owner, or professional organization. So nice and clean, and then a tagline. So I agreed with 100% with Nick, but also thinking in terms of some of these speed networking, right? You're in, you're out. So going in with the idea of asking, does it make sense to follow up? You're going to get 2 to 4 minutes with this person. Mm-hmm. I like going in with some preloaded questions to really understand who they work with, what type of people that are like-minded to them, And that's what I base my request of. Does it make sense to spend 15 minutes on a call later this week or next week? So I like to ask the questions. I don't go in with, let me talk about myself, even though the first word is, what do you do? Yeah, that's the first. It's almost like that race to say it first. And then if someone's takes 3.5 out of the 4 minutes, they don't have that idea of, I'm in this to meet people. They're in that sell mode. And we know that selling doesn't work. It's human nature to push back. But when people are just arm wrestling to ask more questions, I'm like, I want to talk to this person afterwards because we have like values and we probably work in similar circles. So
I agree. It's the walking brochure person, right?
Yeah.
Well, Michael, tell me about Sandler. Whoa, for 5 minutes. Oh, I never got a chance to ask. And then, the session ends.
Oh, by the way, what do you do?
Yeah. So the people who ask questions as well, they go, okay, for my rhythm of business, you get it. And so for folks that understand that idea of being a hub to others versus a direct solicitation, especially in a speed networking, those I follow up a little bit more. Although there is a bit of business patience with that too. Some folks are new at it, some are uncomfortable at it, some have been trained that way. So there's a gut feeling as well.
Of course. And
Nick, you're developing a fan here. Christine, I agree 100% with you.
That's cool.
Nick, how'd you get this fan party?
Did you do that on purpose?
Well, she's president, vice president, controller, treasurer, and in charge of membership. So come on. Yeah. Thank you, Christine.
But I think it's interesting. There's like the only few ways that we could meet new people in a lot of places right now. So I think, by, taking your advice, you got to be ready. I'll probably write down, kind of what I have before, because, 5 people, I talked to them yesterday, they are kind of, they pause for like 10 seconds and then they try to unload everything that they do to me, like, which this is the first time we met, and they tell me, sometimes in speed networking, I've been to a lot of these, and they are a financial planner. They also cook at home, people also tell them they have a good look. He has been doing modeling, so he's trying to tell me all of it in 2 minutes.
Sorry, let me jump in one last time for the one more thing is you keep the same philosophy as networking when we're in the real world. So have a value of, I want to meet people, not I want to sell. That's first and foremost. And number 2, strategize where you're at. You don't find a hawk at a duck pond. So if your prospects aren't in that networking group or aren't at that meeting, I loved Nick's comment of, as you network, where do they hang out? Ask, like, what are you doing to network? What groups are you going to? Because there's a lot of thought leadership, roundtable type networking groups happening at launch that people are doing in this virtual world, that if you're not at that seat, you're doing yourself a disadvantage. But you might not see them on the meetups online or the Eventbrites, where they might not be the most effective use of an hour of your evening. So my last strategy is plan the ones and then research. Go out and find those word of mouth networking events where your prospects are hanging out, because they're there more than ever before. Like, that's what's cool, is that you just have to be connected. And if you don't ask, you don't learn.
I like that. I like that idea. Ask people where they network. Maybe there's, my client might be there already.
To come around to that idea of people not asking you or not, if I say, so Swire, who do you need to meet? Well, I need to meet this. And what's a good source for you? This. Okay, on that note, and then I'll tell them what I need, because they may not think to ask, which is cool, but they hear it. And and then that way it's not just all one way until, like we said, the screen freezes as they say, so Michael, what do you do? Yeah. That's a whole nother show, how to do speed networking effectively, but it truly comes down to take the speed part out of it and make it, we should call it concise networking. We need to get this across. Is there enough to continue? And enough folks know enough folks if it's positioned right.
Okay. As we come to an end, if you like the show, please like our Facebook page and subscribe to us on YouTube. And thank you so much, guys, for coming on. A lot of good information, some homework to do. And Mike, would love to get the exact title from you so we could post it onto the chat so people can check out the book. Thank you so much, guys.
First.
Thanks so much.
Take care.
Bye-bye.